final two passes for day 2. Volunteershoek, a tricky pass, followed by a very enjoyable Carlisle's Hook pass back down to Rhodes. The visor gets dropped in anticipation of our tricky Volunteershoek pass. Little did I know it was still some way off. As mentioned in part 3, we had initially intended to ride to Rhodes, check in, drop off our saddle luggage, and then head back towards War Trail and attempt Volunteers and Carlisle's. We knew Volunteers was going to be a technical pass, and we knew we'd need to be able to move around on the bikes, also to be able to get our weight back to get traction. Alas, we soon realized that with the windy pass to Rhodes, we wouldn't be able to get to Rhodes and back to War Trail in time to tackle both passes. Armed with that realization, we decided to double back and tackle the passes as is, with saddle luggage in tow. Heading into Volunteershoek Pass, I was exceedingly confident. I had watched a number of videos and I felt I had a very good understanding of what was to come. Alas, videos do not do the angles nor the lack of traction any justice. After imparting my wisdom as to how I would tackle this pass, we set off. I had given some sage advice not to avoid the tyres, but rather to just power straight over them. I should have followed that advice up with, don't do as I do, but do as I say.
Bumps are insane. I just feel the keep rolling all the time.
Up until this point, the pass had been relatively easy, but we were under no false illusions. We knew that there were sections up ahead that would be more challenging. We just didn't know to what extent. My limited range of backwards motion was quite challenging on these little bumps that I was trying to jump to keep my momentum up. Now, what was that advice that I dispensed about the tyres? I certainly don't think it was try and avoid them and go around them and then stall your bike.
I try to go around the tyres.
This poor judgment call resulted in me struggling to pull away and regain momentum. Traction was just near impossible. And that set me up for disaster when I got to the next set of tyres. I simply didn't have enough speed to power over the tyres and continue up, which forced me to try and find a route around to the right, which seemed safer than going on the left, which was close to the edge.
I try to go on the side.
After having stuffed up my attempt, I guided my fellow rider up the middle, with power as it should be done, albeit this 1250 had a lot of power. Some advice in hindsight: don't tackle your most technical pass late in the day. We had been on the bikes for nearly 10 hours by the time we got here. In addition, if you don't know what's ahead of you, stop before the obstacles, well before the obstacles, and have a look and judge your line. One thing that I did here is I tried to tackle every single obstacle blind, and ultimately on 2 occasions it led me down the wrong path.
Going left over the cement.
That sneaky pipe leading me left.
Shit, I've taken the wrong line here, I'm buzzing. Floyd. Thanks, I've moved it.
It ultimately doesn't pay to be the first one to get to the obstacle. I had seen the left look nice and open, but alas, some 4x4 riders had placed juicy large rocks blocking that option. I then had to retreat all the way back down the hill, try and gain enough momentum to punch over the first set of tyres, and there was no option of stopping between the two because you'd never get going again. So from there on it was just power all the way to the top. The angle may make it look like I'm sitting the whole way up here, but in actual fact we had removed my saddle luggage such that I could get way back and get traction to get up. And there is my bag next to the 1250. This photo taken after the fact somewhat does the angle justice. And there I am, after the infamous pass and nearly 11 hours on the bike. Again we came across our favourite animal, who didn't care for the fact that daylight was fading. It had a job to do, and that job was to block our path, as it always does. The infamous sheep. One of very many gates on top of this ridge or on top of this mountain range. Here you'll get a good view of my saddlebag and the limited amount of motion that it afforded me. A sad sight, the dormant and closed Tiffindale Resort.
get this done quickly.
A stop for a quick photo shoot before heading down Carlisle's pass.
There's somebody right at there. No. This looks pretty steep, Tim. And that's me.
In the event you haven't watched the previous videos, I'm not talking to myself, I'm actually talking on the intercom and just relaying what I'm seeing and what I'm doing to the rider behind. Definitely one of my favorite passes. Scenery was brilliant and very enjoyable to go down, and obviously the following day we had to come back up this pass to get to Triple T, and it was equally enjoyable going back up. But again, the views, simply brilliant. On a side note, this background music sounds exceedingly Top Gun-like. Hopefully won't be copyright protected. Engine braking down this pass was of paramount importance, just allowing the bike again to hang off the rear wheel and cruise down nicely. so day 2 comes to an end, 6 passes done. We had been up since 6:15 that morning and would finally arrive at Rhodes just after 6 in the evening. Nearly a 12-hour day on the bike. Day 3 would be much the same, as we continue to misjudge the time it takes to get between passes, and, for that matter, to traverse Triple T. We would ultimately find ourselves descending Bidstone in the dark.